All right, we're live. Hi, everyone. Welcome to day 3 of the mini course Get to the Root of Your Symptoms. I'm just double checking here that this is recording. Great. So we've been meeting here every day and today's our third day. We've already covered the root that is our body on Monday, and then on Tuesday we talked about the mind. And today we'll be talking about the heart and how our emotions are just so important. Because actually, the way we think affects our emotions, and then our emotions affect the way we act, which then create our reality. So all of these things, those roots, are intertwined together. And that's why we cannot really only focus on the body without talking about the mind and the heart and the soul, because then it doesn't really work. We end up feeling like there's something missing, and we don't get the results that we want, and we wonder why. And now we need to be tending to all of these roots at the same time. So usually I say that this class is supposed to be around 20 to 30 minutes. So far I've been talking for a bit longer than that. We'll see. I just won't say how long this is supposed to last because I have no idea. It really depends on what comes through me during the class. So really, it doesn't really matter what type of symptoms you struggle with, whether it's fatigue, gut issues, or hormonal imbalances, whether you have brain fog, anxiety, depression, skin issues, you name it, you always need to go back to those roots and nourishing and nurturing those roots, your body, mind, heart, and soul, to improve your health and your life at the same time. All right, so we're done with the Band-Aid solutions. We don't want those quick fixes, although it'd be nice. We know they don't work. You've tried them already. I have too. And we need to do that deeper work and going into the garden and really dig up those roots and make sure that we remove the toxins that may be contaminating those roots and replace them with nutrients that will better nurture them. So just a disclaimer, this mini course is not meant to diagnose, treat, or cure any conditions, and always make sure you work in concert with your doctor before making any changes. And make sure you grab a journal or some paper to write any notes, and also because we'll try to make sure that by the end of this class, we zoom in on one toxin that you want to replace with a nutrient to better nourish your heart. Who am I? In case you haven't watched the other classes, my name is Aglaé Jacob. You can call me AJ. I'm your non-diet dietitian, a heart and soul nutritionist and self-love guide. I love helping women and men that are self-sabotaging with our food and health choices finally make the self-loving choices that guide them towards better health and the life of their dreams, really, because we can really create our life if we are truly nourishing those 4 roots. So my mission is to help you feel more nourished in your body, mind, heart, and soul, because I know that this is really powerful stuff and that it can change you, transform you, and even change the world one person at a time. So let's get started. As I said already, today we're talking about the heart. And why is it so important? It's because our thoughts affect our emotions, which affects our actions, and then create our reality. So we cannot dismiss the impact of our emotions, our thoughts, and all of these things, even if they're not physical, even they're not as concrete as our body, they have a very tangible effect on all of these things. So let me write down what the first toxin, as we did in the last days. We'll talk about the 5 most common toxins that I see affecting the root that we're talking about today, that is your heart. So the first one is negativity. This is something that is hard to avoid. It's present in our day, but what is important to know is that our brain is wired to give negativity more attention. So a negative thought will get 5 times more attention than a positive one. And that is of course, that negativity can affect our body directly by triggering and activating our sympathetic nervous system, our fight or flight or freeze response, which makes it then harder for our body to properly digest and absorb the nutrients we eat and to repair, maintain, and heal itself. We often tend to go to the worst case scenario whenever something happened. Like I had a client earlier this week, and she had like a burning sensation in her stomach, and the first thing that comes to her mind is, oh my God, do I have cancer? So we tend to go to the worst case scenario pretty quickly. We might know it's not rational, but our heart goes there. We get afraid. And then we always have that inner critic. I like to call it an inner mean girl for the ladies out there. For the men, it's the inner mean dude. And there's a lot of self-bullying. We can talk very harshly to ourselves. And guess what? How does that make you feel? It doesn't make you feel very good. And when we feel awful, when we feel like we're bad, we feel like a failure, when we feel like a fraud, when we feel hopeless, helpless, then it's really hard to feel empowered and make the choices that will help us better care of ourselves, our body, and our health. So how can we remove that toxin? That's a pretty big one, a pretty nasty one. We need to replace it with a nutrient called positive reality or reality. I mean, I don't think that we need to necessarily replace it with positivity. We don't need to be wearing pink glasses all the time, because that's, we need to see the whole colors, not only rose and not only turn everything into something positive. That's not a point, but we need to bring that back from the very negative, dark side towards a better balance of gray. So like I was saying, that client who had that burning sensation in her stomach, thinking that, oh my God, I have cancer, even though she knew in her mind that the risk was pretty small, that's what her heart was really afraid of. But it's important to try to bring that back to a positive reality and think, okay, it could be many things. It could be an ulcer. It could be just inflammation, gastritis. It could be reflux. It could be many, many different things. We don't need to jump to the worst case scenario right away. So whenever you feel like you're jumping to that worst case scenario and feel that fear, that constriction, feeling trapped, try thinking, okay, so that's the worst case scenario. Now, what is the best case scenario? The best case scenario is that it's nothing, right? And that things will be well. And then the worst case scenario is that I have cancer and I'm going to die. And then now that you have those two extremes, try to find what's most likely to happen. What is it most likely to be? And you'll find that, okay, it's probably just gastritis or inflammation. I probably haven't made the best choices with my food lately, and that's probably that. And that just remove the charge, the fear that then can lead to more actions that are probably not serving you in the long term. So that's one way to work into that. When you go to that worst case scenario, look at the best case scenario and then find what's the most likely scenario to happen, and that removes the charge. You can also use Byron Katie's 4 questions that we talked about yesterday. So let's take that thought. Okay, I have that burning sensation. I have cancer. I'm going to die. Then you can ask yourself those 4 questions. The first one, is this really true? Well, I don't know. I think I do, but I don't know. Then the second question is, can you absolutely know that it's true? Well, no, I cannot know. I'm not a doctor. I haven't done an endoscopy or a colonoscopy or whatever to see what's really going on in there. I guess I cannot diagnose myself. Then the third question is, how do you react? And what happens when you believe that thought? Well, I feel afraid. I feel doomed. I feel like my body is betraying me. So you can see how that thought, those emotions are then affecting you in a pretty deep way. And then the fourth question is, who would you be without the thought? Well, I would feel more empowered. I wouldn't feel like my body is betraying me. I would feel like, okay, so what I need to do is maybe eat more anti-inflammatory food and take better care of myself, and maybe just, go see my doctor, figure out what that is. So it just brings us back into reality where we're not necessarily wearing pink glasses, but we're not wearing those really dark shades that make everything look like we're doomed and out of control, and remove that fear too. So that was the first toxin, which is pretty general, but I think that you can all understand how that can play into your life. The second one is, here it is. Is it showing up? Okay, so self-loathing and judgment. So nowadays, it's really easy to compare yourself a lot with social medias, with medias in general, and TV and the movies, magazines, billboards, ads, all of that. We see we're comparing ourselves to a lot of different people. Okay, sorry if you're having issues watching. I don't know if it's a connection, but at least you'll know the recording will be there if you have issues. Sorry if it's on my side, but it seems to be recording. So it's going to be in the Facebook group, the Radicata Nutrition Community, as soon as it's over. So yeah, comparison is a huge issue, and I see it happens for so many people. And maybe you've heard the quote saying, like, we're comparing our day-to-day life to other people's highlights or whatever, so what people usually post on social media are the highlights of their life, and always the good side. And you can always change the composition of the picture and make sure you're at the perfect angle and all of that. And that's true for so many things. So we cannot compare ourselves to that. And oftentimes, most of the time, comparison makes us feel small, bad about ourselves, hopeless, helpless, even disgusted with ourselves, powerless, guilty, ashamed. So those are really big toxins for our heart. So what can we replace that with? We need more compassion. Our heart is craving compassion. And yeah, it can be a habit to compare ourselves. Erin, you're so right. It just becomes the norm. And I think that in a way we're taught to do that because the school system is based on competition, and we need to be better, have better grades, and who's the winner. There's a lot of that's ingrained in our culture and the way we're raised. But we need to try to minimize or ideally stop comparison. It's not easy, but one way you can do that is by, I'm not a fan of detoxes, but detoxing your social media feed. Yes, that's definitely something that's needed. I do that regularly whenever I notice something in my Instagram or Facebook feed that makes me feel, that tightness, constriction. Then I know that it's something that I don't need in my life. That's a toxin for my heart. So I just unfollow that person. And then everything is easier when I don't constantly get triggered into feeling like I'm not good enough, or I'm not doing enough, or I'm not as good of a mom as that person. Yeah, comparison is truly the thief of joy. So, and a lot of people feel like, oh, well, if I unfollow that person, I won't see all of the other things that they do, blah, blah, blah. But you can always go back to look at their feed at any time if you want to. There is nothing lost there. And I can tell you from experience that I've never missed anyone that I've unfollowed. So, give it a try. Try to clean up your feed. That's really a powerful thing, because most people look at their social media feeds multiple times a day. So that's a pretty good source of toxin for your heart that you can remove right there. And also, maybe what about political social media to spread awareness? I feel compelled to share things, but I also hate seeing sad things happening to people I know. So we need to keep that balance between staying aware of what is happening in the world. So I think that we cannot cut ourselves off completely from that, but maybe we can limit, like maybe we don't need to be seeing that like multiple times day, but maybe there could be a time of the day. Maybe you decide, a time where you're feeling pretty strong, and not a time where you're feeling vulnerable or tired or emotional, where you can decide, okay, I'm going to check out what's happening in the world, and then, when that window is done, it's done. And that way you're not receiving and bombarded with toxins throughout the day. Okay. Okay. So that's one thing. Another thing to bring more compassion to your life is just look at yourself in the mirror. How often, usually when we look at ourselves in the mirror, we just look at our, body, is my shirt okay, whatever. But how often do you really, truly look at your eyes, like really close like that? And then you'll be able to peek into your heart and soul and just tell yourself every morning, looking into your own eyes, I'm doing the best that I can, and it's enough. And do that. Repeat it 3 times. I'm doing the best that I can, and it's enough. I'm doing the best that I can, and it's enough. Looking at your own eyes, it's so, so powerful. And it will start rewiring your brain into bringing more compassion to your heart every day, because that's such an important nutrient for your heart. Okay, let's move on to toxin number 3, which is a big one, especially for the ladies, I would say, self-sacrifice. I don't know about you, but I was raised thinking that a good mother would sacrifice herself for other people around them, their children, and everyone, really. So for me, when I first became a mom, I fell back into putting myself very last or not even on the list, and forgetting about taking care of myself. So I would sacrifice myself and do everything for other people around me. And the danger in that is that you are left feeling exhausted, drained, depleted. And then if you do that for too long, you can become bitter and resentful as well. So that has a very big impact on our body, mind, heart, and soul. And that's a lesson I've learned the hard way, and maybe you have too. So if you have a lot of self-sacrifice contaminating your heart right now, you need to replace that with the nutrient self-care. Self-care is not narcissistic. Self-care is also not synonymous with pampering. Pampering ourselves is just one form of self-care, but we need to go deeper than that. It's also not something that you do once and you're done with it. You cannot do self-care once a month. Even once a week is not enough. You need a daily dose of self-care to truly nourish your heart. You've probably heard of the analogy of the oxygen mask and the cup of tea you can pour from an empty cup and all of that. And it is really, really, really true. Exactly. Put your own oxygen mask before helping others. And I know we've heard that many times, but it's hard to implement that in our life sometimes. So I would say that even though it feels like, there's just so much to do on your list, and you feel more productive when you focus on that and try to tick things off your list, and it feels like a waste of time to focus even 10 minutes, 15 minutes on your own self-care, I would say that you would actually be a lot more productive if you would make sure that you protect and create some space for some sacred time just for yourself, because you'll be a lot more energized, your heart will be more nourished, and you'll be able to give a lot more and get a lot more done. So self-care could look different for different people, but it could be just making time to just do nothing, which is it can be difficult at first because we're used to having so many distractions, but this can be really great as a form of self-care. Just reading a book, listening to music, or playing an instrument, dancing, yoga, being out in nature, arts and crafts, just sleeping is part of your self-care too. So making time for a reasonable bedtime and eating at regular times. So all of these little things really add up and help your heart feel nourished when you're taking good care of yourself, including your body and all of that. Your heart just feels that love from yourself to yourself. Okay. Now, number 4 is isolation. It's pretty ironic, like technology is allowing us to be more connected than we've ever been, yet most people feel more alone and isolated at the end of the day. We are a social animal. We need human contact. You know, there are very, very sad studies conducted with babies and children raised in crowded orphanages during times of war, for example, that have shown that when they're deprived of human contact and touch, those babies and children fail to thrive, and some of them die. We really need that. As adults, we're a bit more resilient, and we won't necessarily die from that, but we certainly won't thrive. So we really need to create opportunities for connection. And there's even a quote that says, "We don't heal in isolation, but in community," by I'm not sure what the first name is, but Kelly Harrell, I think. So how can we introduce more connection, real connection, not just like, you know, Facebook and texting is great, but we're not as connected on a human level when we use that technology. We need to feel that common humanity, feel like we're not alone struggling with the things we're struggling with, making us feel that we're normal, that we go through the same thing as other people. And that not feeling alone is actually one of the best ingredients to boost your compassion, which was the last nutrient we just talked about, because by feeling less alone, we can have more understanding and compassion for ourselves. So one way to create more connection is, you know, online communities are great. Sometimes you find like-minded people, but if you can try to find those that are local to your areas, or maybe a meetup groups for real in-person connection. It could also be, besides those groups with common interests, going to the farmer's market. If you're a mom, maybe a local playground or mom's group, or even going to a yoga studio or gym might help you find some of these people that could be helping you feel more connected to others, because this is really healing in and of itself. Now, the 5th toxin, I'm sorry if I don't have time to read all of your comment here. I'll definitely get back to them after this recording. Okay, the 5th toxin is the victim mentality. I think I shared some stories about that, especially about my son's sleep last week and how I was stuck in the victim mentality. If you take care of the 4 other toxins we talked about today, like being stuck in negativity, self-loathing and judgment, self-sacrifice and isolation, it should really help you get out of that victim mentality. But I just want to address it separately because this is something that's really common. It's just so easy to fall into that victim mentality. I've been there myself many times. I've had many health issues like gut issues and PCOS and fear of infertility and my eating disorder. And, you know, it's easy to say, oh, poor me. Why is this happening to me? This isn't fair. I don't, why do I, you know, what did I do to deserve this? And et cetera, et cetera. And this is really not helping us move forward and heal. So what can we replace that with? We need to replace that with dreaming. Dreaming is one of the nutrients that can counter the victim mentality. Again, you know, the other nutrients we talked about are also helpful, thinking about a more positive reality, compassion, self-care, connection. But then dreaming is really, really powerful. And most of us don't allow ourselves to dream. As a victim, we see everything is dark, and we actually forget about what do we want to create, what we're moving towards. So we need to give ourselves permission to dream. I work to become a self-love guide. My mentor, Christina Rilo, has a tool, the Dream Wheel, where you need to try to list 108 of your dreams. Those dreams can be small or big, crazy, or just little things, realistic or not. It doesn't really matter, but try listing 108 of your dreams. Give you permission to think to go beyond what your life looks like right now. And it's actually not that easy to do. I got to around 70 and I could not think of anything else. But it's just, no matter how many you get to, try to list as many as possible. And you'll see that it activates something in you. And then you can pick 3 or 4 of these dreams to focus on and just take one step toward that. For example, one of my dreams was to do, and there was one that was to do a past life regression. And that might sound crazy to some of you, but I was compelled to do that. And then I just, like, someone introduced me to someone I knew, told me that they just had one and referred me to that person. And I made it happen. If I hadn't really thought about it and written it down on my list of dreams, trusting that it can come true, I might not have grabbed that opportunity. Another one was walking El Camino de Santiago, the pilgrimage route in Spain. That's a 30 to 35 day walk. Right now, I wouldn't even want to think about it because my son is pretty young and I feel like I won't be able to do this before I'm like in 10, 20 years from now. But just having that on my dream wheel, seeing that, I allowed myself to buy a guidebook and watch some documentaries. And you can see it just makes me feel happy to think about that, think that it can become possible. So little things like that can really activate some really powerful, healing, transformative emotions in your body, and that's what you want. And if that doesn't appeal to you for some reason, you can also just try visualizing yourself. If you have symptoms right now, visualize yourself not having those symptoms. What would that feel like? What would you do? Who would you be? And do that every morning or every night when you go to bed, and start rewiring your brain and allowing you to feel that and really know that it can and will happen. So yeah, dream. I give you permission to dream. So, okay, so just a recap of the 5 toxins we talked about today. First, there was, negativity that we can try to replace with a more positive reality instead of being stuck in that worst case scenario. Going to the best case scenario and then finding somewhere in between that's most likely to be our reality. Then removing the second one was self-loathing and judgment, especially relating to comparison, and replacing that with compassion. Then the third one was self-sacrifice, and making sure that we prioritize self-care on a daily basis. And it doesn't have to take very long, but you have to do it. The fourth one was isolation, and the nutrients to replace that with is connection. True human connection is so important. And then the fifth one was the victim mentality, and we can step away from that by adding all of the other nutrients we talked about, but also by giving ourselves the permission to dream, really, and to create those feelings and emotions in our heart that will then create a new reality for us with time. So I think I did it. 30 minutes, that's better. That's what I was aiming for. Great. So I think that's all for today. If you have any questions, oh yeah, and again, focus on one of these 5 toxins that are contaminating the root that is your heart right now, and one nutrient that you can replace that with. Focus. As with focus, we get better results. So far you have 1 toxin for your body, 1 for your mind, and today you're thinking about 1 from your heart that you want to work on. Write that down, make it something that becomes part of your day, every day, and see the shifts that will happen from that. Tomorrow, day 4, we'll talk about our soul. This is the 4th root, and don't worry, it's not necessarily, I don't see that as a religious or not even spiritual if you don't want to go there, but it's more about the integration of your body, heart, and mind all together that become your soul. So that's what we'll talk about today, how to better nourish your soul. And tomorrow, during that next class, I'll also share more about what happened with my voice last week, because it has a lot to do with that. So I can't wait to share that with you. And please share the one toxin you decide to focus on in the comments. I can't wait to read them. And I'll talk to you very, very soon. And of course, if you think that this course might benefit other people you know, just invite them to the group, send them the link of this group, and I would really, really appreciate it. Thank you. Bye.